Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Jake Ludington here, and I'm with author Sarah Gerdes and producer Lucas Foster for the ebook and upcoming movie Chambers, which will be a series of 5 books and movies, apparently. And they are doing an in-store launch at the Microsoft Store in Bellevue, Washington on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and also at the Fry's in Renton. And tell me a little bit about this, because books and movies don't typically launch in electronic stores. What's the purpose behind
the grand vision? I'm
Yeah.
gonna let Lucas explain the grand vision.
Well, look, there are different mediums. A book and a movie are different products, but you can have what we think is you can have an enhanced experience where, people will read the book first, and hopefully, if we do a decent job and we make it, I like to joke, we make it suck less. If we produce the movie well, people will come and see that, people who have read the book and people who've heard about the book. And we're thinking also to make some games and out of it as well. And there might even be some retail, sort of live event version of it. So our theory is, we can make a kind of very comprehensive experience where you can live with these characters in various ways for a long time. And because it's a 5-book series, and because it's so, intricate, and the story is very vast and covers a long period of time and multiple cultures and whatever, I really think it's something that's not going to run out of gas anytime soon. It's got a lot of entertainment value.
So are we going to see like an Ang Lee type director for this epic? And I should probably go into a little bit about the story. I've only read about the first half of the book at this point, and it's these kids who time travel back in time to ancient China, and then have kind of a martial arts adventure, which is why I bring up like the Ang Lee, or maybe we get John Woo or somebody like that to direct. I suppose you're not going to tip your hat in that direction as to who's
I
on board.
can't. It's too early to commit to who the director should be or will be. But it'll be somebody who's good with adventure stories and someone who's good with emotion, because it's a weirdly emotional story for these 2 kids.
How did this story come about?
My son was 12 at the time, and he was bored, and I was trying to get him engaged in writing. And I love history, I love historical fiction, but I love action. I mean, I grew up watching Indiana Jones and reading Robert Ludlum, and so I wanted to write something that was engaging. So that's something to me that I wanted to write. And so when I ended up writing the first version, it was geared for a younger audience, the 9 to 12-year-old. And when Lucas read it, he liked the plot line and liked the characters, but wanted to age it up, really for an appropriately movie-going audience. The 18 to 25 that I can see a PG-13 show and feel okay about it. So I rewrote it, and so that's what Chambers came out to be, was really dealing with mature themes, absentee parents, having the teenagers to rely on their wits and figure it out. So that's how it came to be pretty quickly last year.
So it's a little bit, like if you're going to try to do a movie studio pitch sort of scenario, it's a little bit Harry Potter meets like the Karate Kid's coming of age theme.
With a little young Indiana Jones.
With a little young Indiana Jones thrown in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the kind of stuff that you're sitting on the edge, which you referenced China. It's the only time in China that there was a 14-year-old Ming Emperor. I mean, that's real.
Yeah.
The greatest admiral of all time, they're real. The fighting, we kind of embellish, but I like martial arts. Lucas is a martial arts fan, so can't wait to see how those turn out.
And actually, that was one of the things that I was most impressed with. I actually am a little bit of a fan of Chinese history personally, and speak Mandarin fairly badly, but the fight scenes are detailed and sound like they could be accurate, which is not always true in fiction of that type.
Well, you just wait till the book, right, where you have somebody breaking somebody else's neck, because I had to learn that as a 4th section. So other than flying up and catching a parrot between somebody's legs, I mean, most of those are real fight scenes. I mean, fight scenes that I've had to do, or that you do in training. So they're
Wait, so
they're
fight
very
scenes
real.
you've had to do. So you're a martial artist.
Oh yeah. So I'm one belt below a black belt. So that means I've been training for a number of years, used a lot of different weapons, and so I hope the whole fans don't get too angry at me for dispelling some secrets. But that's why it's fun and exciting.
And I specifically brought up Karate Kid in this because I see this as
There's no chopsticks.
Well, no, but assuming that the movie comes across well, this could be something that causes a resurgence in martial arts. Because I know for me as a kid, The Karate Kid was like every kid I knew wanted to do martial arts as a result of watching The Karate Kid. And I mean, right now we've got this, everybody wants to do MMA and just like beat the crap out of each other, which seems like it would be nice if there would be a shift away from that a little bit.
Yeah, the traditional art forms is actually very, very internal, very deep, and very, very complex and rich in terms of emotion. And when we talk to, well, in my line, the masters, it's almost reverential, and you have to work through so many, like the physical layers till you get to the essence. And that's actually what part of the character-driven story is about, is getting to the essence of who we are and making those choices, because they will ripple throughout generations, and it's part of the embedded element of the story.
Yeah, the martial arts in this story are more traditional, and there's a spiritual element to it and a personal element to it, and obviously there's a physical element, like what is your physical ability. And I find it intriguing because, I'm still a 17-year-old boy as far as I'm concerned. And, the story has a kind of what would you do if you were in that circumstance. You're transported to another time. You have no frame of reference. There's no, you have no telephone. There's nobody to call to help you. And all the characters have is really their knowledge of history and their wits to get through a pretty tricky situation where they're, two white people in a sea of, traditional Chinese society. And it's really cool the way Sarah unfolds the story and peels back what's really going on and who's the bad guy is and what everybody's objective is. It's very clever. And the way these two kids figure it out, their brother and sister, it doesn't have this sort of sappy romantic thing that you find in the Twilight series, which is fine. But I just, romance for 15-year-olds is just not interesting to me. I'm more interested in the fact that, these kids have to figure out and solve problems that are really difficult problems using just their brains and their physical abilities and kind of a lot of guts.
And actually, that's where I bring up the Harry Potter reference that I made earlier, because there is a parallel in that sense of it's kids who have to figure out how to solve problems, but the unique difference is that this is kids having to solve problems with their brains and their own physical abilities, not using magic as a crutch. And that was one of the things that, while I love the Harry Potter stories, there seemed to be a magical way out of absolutely everything in Harry Potter.
I wish life were like that.
Exactly.
Me too.
Who doesn't?
Me too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I like that the kids are, having to be industrious, and I like that they have to think for themselves, and there's not some parent there telling them what to do, and in fact, the adults in the story are arguably not that trustworthy. And so it's quite interesting that they have to work it out for themselves, and I think that that's good storytelling. I think it's what I would like my kids to know how to do. I don't want to have to save them from every circumstance. I want them to think on their feet and figure out how to function, and no matter how complicated the situation is. It's good storytelling. It's good adventure storytelling.
It feels like a great adventure. I mean, it feels like as I'm reading it that I'm visualizing a lot of what's going on in my head. And so hopefully when you translate that to the screen, it'll be even bigger than what's in my head.
It's going to be epic and beautiful when I'm done with it.
So how does this fit with, because you have been involved in movie projects for quite a few years at this point. I think I read somewhere online that like Bad Boys with Will Smith was one of your first big projects.
Yeah.
And leading up to more recently things like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and did I see that you were involved in Jarheads in some capacity? No.
Jumper, Man on Fire, Street Kings, Law Abiding Citizen.
So a lot of well-known things. So presumably you have that track record that this is going to be right out there. How is this something that is kind of a interesting thing in a career that's already filled with seemingly a fair amount of success?
It's hard to explain like what your decision-making process is, to quantify it. But I've said before, first it's got to be emotional. I'm only interested in stories that have some kind of emotional resonance, because I don't know, movies are a particularly hard medium to tell a story in. A book, with all respect, because you worked very hard on it, and it's a great book. There's very little time in a movie. One of the things about movies that you learn when you've made a few of them is there's like no time to tell backstory or to get off into any kind of subplot or side story. you have to really skim the wave tops quite a bit. So that 2 hours, it goes by really quickly. So I look for things that have a kind of very deep emotional, primal kind of impulse. And once I know what that is and I'm comfortable with it, then all the plot stuff is easier, and sort of growth of character is easier, and I can handle that. But for me as a storyteller and someone, people think producers typically are sort of money guys, but actually I do it more.
Isn't that the executive producer is the money guy?
Honestly, it's different in every deal. Producing is like the only job where, you say producer and it can have 7 different meanings depending on who it is. I'm kind of very old school about it, and I look at it as a storyteller's art, and that's the part that interests me. I obviously have to handle the money too, and the deal making and all of that, and casting and marketing and whatever, but the fundamental job, the sort of central job, is just to tell the story effectively. And it's a tough medium to do that in, because people's attention spans are short, and I like blowing stuff up, and setting things on fire, quite a bit.
Obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a good example of that.
Well, I did that every 10 minutes, basically. But, it's got to have some kind of, obviously, resonance or kind of real storytelling, or you get bored very quickly. If you look at Michael Bay movies or other filmmakers, where there's like literally like a metronomic, there's an explosion like every so many minutes, I personally find that boring. I need some context and some, emotional, difficulty, some conflict.
So you're not a huge fan of the Transformers series?
I'm not a giant fan of that, no.
I'm sadly disappointed, actually, because I loved the Transformers growing up, and now they've made it into an explosion fest. I
don't have the patience. Maybe when I was younger, maybe, I'm not, even though I think I'm a 17-year-old boy, I'm actually not, and so maybe when I was 17, I would sit through that and think that was cool. And Michael I've worked with him, obviously, and he has an immense visual ability, which carries him a long way. But the visuals are valuable and they're important, but they're not as important as sort of laying the keel of the boat and having the pure story be something that you really want to know what's going to happen next. And organizing the story in such a way that it grabs you and doesn't let go of you and makes you wonder about the outcome is really an art, and it's quite hard to do. So I think Sarah's book achieves that in book form, and I'm going to really try my best to make sure that happens in the movies and games and other things that we're doing together.
Well, and to that point, that's one of the ways it's really different, is it's going to be the first franchise, right, with so many different things.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted Mr. and Mrs. Smith to be, 4 or 5 movies, as did my producing partner on that movie. We wanted it to be the continuing adventures of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and the politics of various things prevented it from happening. And Man on Fire was actually written as a multi-book series. The character Creasy was intended to go on. We made the last book in the series intentionally, but we were going to go back and make the prequels and sort of show you how he got to be who he was before he dies in Man on Fire, obviously. And I've tried to do it before. Bad Boys is a series of 2 movies. It's not really a series, but I've always wanted to make kind of epic series, adventure series. So hopefully this will be a good one.
And as a writer, so you were previously, shift gears here a little bit, you were previously a business book writer, and as someone who writes largely about technology, but some other things, I have thought about writing fiction. How did you make that transition?
Well, I just tell people, just go get pregnant, go get on bed rest.
Okay, that might be a challenge for me, although there's a story right there.
Be creative.
It would certainly make the news.
It would.
Writing a business book was worthwhile and was great. McGraw-Hill was wonderful to be a publisher, but it was like writing a long-term paper. I mean, there was no soul. And ultimately, I just needed to have the opportunity to channel all of that energy into a work that I wanted to have be meaningful to me. But honestly, it was a luckily pregnant thing. I had to shut the consulting down. I couldn't travel. I could only do phone and email, and I just was stuck with it. But what I realized is it wasn't the impossible. I could actually write more than 1 hour a day. I could write 10 hours. It might not all be great, but at least it was getting me better at my craft. And so, when you're standing there shooting a free throw, for all of those hours to get better at it. It's the same thing.
The other thing I would add, just as not being a book writer, but being someone who deals with writers a lot, is you have to have the wherewithal, the balls, basically, to rewrite yourself and not be precious. Because, I've made Sarah rewrite this book, quite a lot. And it's grown and greatly improved in each draft. And I think that's something that screenwriters really are comfortable with, or more comfortable with, is just rewriting constantly.
Because screenwriters may rewrite a scene the day that it shot, right?
Often as we're shooting.
Or as shooting.
Unfortunately. So, it's accepted that screenwriting is rewriting. We sort of joke, like, rubbing is racing, screenwriting is rewriting. It is. But I think it's a useful way to look at almost anything you do. If you write code, it can definitely...
Code a lot of times is better the second or third
time. It can
time.
benefit greatly from, being looked at many times. And it's the same thing with a book. It really needs to be written, rewritten, revised, edited, rewritten again, and just polished. And I think that continuously sort of polishing the jewel, it makes for better, better stories. It's the only way to do it, really. I don't understand when authors or screenwriters or writers of any kind send me something and think that
Think it's
like
perfect?
Descended from God, from the heavens, like it comes with some angel music, like it's perfect.
Are there writers who do have scripts that come with angel music?
It would be a good idea to send it with some kind of a musical accompaniment, but no, often it comes in a brown envelope with nothing else, and isn't very good usually. So it's hard. It's a lot of hard work. What Sarah was sort of saying, I think, metaphorically, is, yeah, I was pregnant and I had no choice. I needed to do something, and I'm not going to sit there and do nothing. But in reality, it's just she poured an enormous amount of work into it, right? And that is really what it takes.
Well, and I like to say that, I don't really have any natural talent for writing. I just have a talent of perseverance to just do it. And that's a big thing for life's challenges. Can we just get back up when someone says, no, you didn't meet the bar? Can you just get back up and do it and try again and again and have it be okay? And, I didn't have any baggage going in with Lucas. I mean, I wasn't an established author in the fiction world. I didn't have a big contract. I wasn't tethered to a publisher. And since I come from the business world, too, I was pragmatic. I just said, how do we make this better? With a product, with software, you say, how do we make the product good? And with Lucas, it was, well, Lucas, what would you do? The collaboration that was natural to me from a business world is maybe not so natural to authors who sit, they write, they create, and say, I know
by themselves,
and they don't ever want it to change because it's kind of like this sacred thing. And I didn't approach it that way, and I value his input, and he cares, in a way that is just awesome, because he's pounding on me when I went to the studio, pounding on me like, well, why this and why that, and where's this character going? But I had answers for it because I thought about it, but I still liked his input because it made a better product, and I just didn't have any sacred cows that I wasn't willing to, put on the table. So it was fun.
Nice. And
yeah.
With the movie that's coming up and the launch that's happening this weekend, I understand that there's opportunity for a walk-on role in the movie. 4 walk-on roles in the movie.
Yeah, one giving away at each one.
It's actually not walk-on roles in Chambers because that would take too long, because it's going to be a little while before Chambers starts shooting. So it's walk-on roles in upcoming movies of mine that are not Chambers. So what we are saying to people is, come see us, come meet with us, say hello. I'll autograph your small child if you like, and come talk to us about the book, which is a really good book, and we're giving away copies of the book. We're giving away some Kindles and other things, and we're also giving away walk-on roles in some of my upcoming movies. I've done it for charity before, where people have asked me. Soldiers for the Truth, which is a very cool charity, asked me to give away some walk-on roles in some movies, so I did. And Law Abiding Citizen has 2 walk-on roles with people who are not normally extras, and so we're doing that in some of the movies that I have coming up. So I have a couple of action movies that I'm about to start shooting.
Yeah,
cool.
in the fall, which is close.
Which is soon, as opposed to waiting until
I'm going to China.
until this is a kind of a big logistical challenge to actually launch the first movie. So
are you guys going to shoot the movie in China? Is that the plan, or is this?
I would like to shoot some of it there because I think it will be more authentic that way. I was just in China actually a couple of months ago and looking around, and I was hosted by a really good guy who's very connected, so he took me everywhere I wanted to go. And I think it would be nice to shoot some of the Chinese parts in China. And I shot in China for Jumper, and I liked it. So, you know, they have a very long history of shooting movies there, so they have a lot of experience. So it's an easy place to go film. And the rest, I don't know where we'll shoot it yet. You know, we'll see. But it's going to be, you know, it'll be a pretty big beginning of a franchise. So it's not a little movie. It's quite an expensive enterprise.
I'm excited to see the outcome, because I mean, and I am absolutely going to finish the book. So.
Well, good. We can't wait for it.
Which is a big testament to me, because there's a lot of times where I will get partway through a book and say, "Man, this is awful," and bail. But I'm invested now, and I'm entertained to see where the outcome of the characters is.
Well, good. Thank you. I mean, part of the ebook phenomena is that it's immediate content. You know, you don't have to wait 2 years for a book to come out and then a couple more years for the movie. I mean, you can do it in parallel. And with consumption of content on, you know, your phones, on anything, it just makes it so easy. Oh, I like it, I'm downloading and I'm reading it right now. So
I really
it's
like
fun.
that too. I think
I love that.
I have nothing against the traditional publishing model, because I can appreciate a good hardcover book also. But I do like that everything's kind of merging, and we get to use the appropriate medium for the appropriate feeling we want to convey to people. And it doesn't have to be, you know, silos where everything is disconnected. Everything can be connected and interconnected, and we can tell pieces of the story that maybe make sense in a book, and other pieces that make sense in a movie, and different pieces that make sense in a game or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, if you came back and said, well, I love this secondary character, and some people have already said that, boy, can you please just emphasize a secondary character in something else? We can take that feedback and put it into a game, or put it into, you know, an alternative scenario. It's wonderful, because in a publishing world, you don't do that. It's just very linear.
So maybe there'll be an offshoot game with Zhang He coming back to the.
that'd be cool.
To the
It would.
That'd be cool. We have some pretty interesting ideas coming up, not fully baked yet, not ready to talk about, but very cool ideas of how to extend the world that these characters live in, and to spend more time with them and learn more about the dad, because the father, you know, as you know, because you've read some of it, you know, gives them something that allows them to travel in time, or they get access to it. And you know, we're going to learn a little bit more about that.
So reader feedback is important. That's the key. That's what we're telling you.
That's one of the things that I have found most entertaining about the New World. I mean, sure, you get some trolls who are going to provide you with lots of hate in feedback form, but you actually get feedback
You missed
from
that period on that page. Yeah.
But I mean, you get feedback from like real people who are passionate and want something more.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're really smart, actually.
They are.
I've been surprised repeatedly by people who've, you know, criticized movies, or sometimes constructively, where they've said, you know, this is what should have happened, and often they're right. You know, I've thought about it, and you know, so there was some criticism about Law-Abiding Citizen, and I thought, you know what, that's an intelligent. There's some intelligent comments there. I wish you had worked for me when I was making that movie. I could have incorporated it. So in this medium, we do get to move the sliders a bit and let the audience kind of tell us where they want it to go. And it is 5 books, and it spans kind of a long time. So you know, and they do go to other interesting places in history. So you know, it'll be cool for, you know, if you don't like China, just wait, because we're going other interesting places,
other places
cultures.
that, you know, I want to go visit, but no, there's some historical reason. But you know, what's hard for me as an author is when I hear feedback, or I receive something that actually is valid. In ebook, it's so tempting to go change it, because I know I can. I can go up and I can change it, and you can publish a new
Just
Kindle
so you
version.
can re-upload.
And well, yeah, can you imagine you have like 10 versions of the same thing, like a business book, and be like, no, wait, I like version 3 better. But actually, that is challenging, because I'm pretending it's locked. You know, I'm not making any contextual changes. But when I hear something, an author always wants to have the best product. You know, I think a movie maker does, but you know, it's done, it's out the door. You can't fix it. So I'm just
And
telling
maybe
myself, no,
if the
I can't.
book is fixed in time, you know, I can take people's comments into the movies and use that in a valuable way.
Yeah, because there's
So.
always some characters that people will just adore, and they want more of. And certainly it's going to be up to Lucas to transform it. And I'm just going to sit back and, you know, nod my head, because what do I know about filmmaking? You know, nothing. And he's being so kind too. He's saying, well, I'll gather your input, and he's just being so kind. But really, I'll stay out of his way, because I know not a thing about that world.
All right, so if people want to download the book and read it, is Amazon?
We got options.
Is Amazon the only place, or where else can they get it?
No, we got options. So we've got Apple, we've got Amazon, we've got Nook, and just for people who want it off Amazon for whatever reason, you don't have to have the software. You know, e-reader software, I mean, it's free. You can put it on anything. You don't actually have to have a Kindle. So it's great, and it's $2.99. And
Yeah,
it's
the Kindle software is available on whatever platform
Device
or
you
device
want.
Windows,
you,
Mac,
you want.
BlackBerry,
Yeah.
Android, iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure reading it that way would be helpful, but it's fun. So it's available now. You can get it, and registration is free. There's no purchase necessary for any of the giveaways. So you can register online at my website, sarahgerdes.com. Sign up, random drawing. We're so
Nice.
excited. Yeah, the fun's going to start tomorrow.
Excellent.